Hey guys, welcome. Thanks for being here for yet another part in this Easy Eye Week series. And this is for those of you who are looking for the va-va-voom eye, the X factor, the added thing that is just going to give you those come and get me eyes. You know what I'm saying? All right, we're going to be working on the outer V today. That is, I think, kind of a tricky aspect of eye makeup, trying to shape your eyeshadow in such a way that you look lifted, but yet everything still looks blended out and like you were just made that way. And we're going to be doing it all with just a $1 quad, so that's pretty awesome too. So here's how to get the look. All right guys, first step for this look. I'm always a little hoarse when I start out here with these tutorials because you guys are literally the first people I am talking to when I start my day. Everyone else is asleep when I get up to do this, but a little Milani eyeshadow primer here. Gonna pick that up with this Sigma Tapered brush and just swipe it on. Shadow quad we're using is called Luxe. It's by e.l.f. and it is only $1. And the funny thing about these eyeshadow quads is, like, you might think, okay, we're working in more shadows, this is going to get more advanced or whatever, but not necessarily, because sometimes I feel like with eyeshadow quads, everything is a little more clear cut. For a basic look, every shade has its purpose, not that you couldn't go outside of that and do your own thing with it, but you know, there's less multitasking involved as there might be with a single, a duo, or even a trio. So I'm going to dip into this lightest shade first. I'm using my Sonia Kashuk medium shadow brush, and I'm just taking this right around the innermost part, so kind of surrounding the tear duct, and this is just kind of a creamy matte color. Then I'm going to use this kind of brownish shade. It's got a little bit of sheen to it, kind of a brownish taupey color, and I'm going to pat that all over my lid with the same brush. Be sure to stick to that patting motion with your shadows though. Sweeping back and forth really won't result in the maximum color payoff where you want it anyway. You might get more on your cheek that way. Next up, we're going to go to this darkest brown shade, and for that I want to deepen my outer corner, and I also want to show you how to form that outer V, which I often reference in videos, but I don't always really show how to get it. So I'm going to dab into this with my small shadow brush. So we're downsizing the brush a little bit, not only because we're applying it over a smaller area, but I want the color to be more concentrated. So just tapping it right here on the outer corner first, on the lid. Now for the crease, I want to bring in a more precise crease brush. I feel like in the last couple of videos we've worked in a brush that's about this size for the crease, a Sigma E25, which I still think is very usable, very handy, but an even smaller crease brush like this is from Makeup Revolution. It's called the 315. I got mine from CVS, and it's a really nice small size for placing shadow exactly where you want it. Sometimes the only obstacle standing in your way of an eye look that looks defined and not muddy can be using a brush that's too big for your eyes. So whether you're a beginner, whether you've just got small eyes, I do think this is a really great brush to have. Dabbing into that darkest shade here, tapping off a little excess. I am placing my brush first where I want the most product to go, so that's the outer corner. And we're just going to start kind of going inward first, bringing a little bit of that shadow into the crease area, and then we're pulling outward. And when I'm thinking about the shape of an outer V, when I'm pulling the shadow upward in that manner, I'm thinking about where is the end of my eyebrow, and kind of keeping those two things in line. If you drop it too far down, you're going to get kind of a droopy look to the eye. We want to create the look of lift, so we're going to point it up toward the tip of our eyebrow. This is a trick I see a lot of times when I'm watching the news, whether I'm watching Today's Show or you name it. I can see that this is a technique with eyeshadow that kind of fools the eye, because you just quickly glance at that person and you're like, oh, their eyes look nice and wide awake and lifted, but their eyeshadow has been applied in such a way that it really changes the shape of the eye. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other eye, and with this quad, very important to tap off the excess because it can generate some fallout. But just start working it in that outer corner. I'm bringing it inward a bit so I can have a little bit of lightened crease color right in this zone. And then it's just a matter of, you know, placing your brush, drawing in basically exactly that little pointed out shape that you want for the outer part of your eyeshadow. There's no guesswork here. It's just, where your brush goes is where the product goes. With larger brushes, I think there can be a little guesswork. Now we want to bring in our bare blending brush so we can go over those edges, make sure everything is nice and smooth. I'm not really getting into the crease and blending over. I'm blending over the border because I don't want to muddy up the look too much. I just want to blend and soften the edges of it. Next up, you guys know I'm not skipping over this red shade, right? I'm taking my e.l.f. crease brush. I used this the other day as kind of a transition color type of brush. I'm going to do the same thing right now. I'm looking for the border, even though it's nice and soft right now. I'm looking for kind of an edge to that dark kind of grayish brown shade. And I'm going to go right on top of that edge with this pretty warm kind of berry, cranberry looking color. A couple of things to keep in mind when you're doing this. I have very little product on my brush, number one, and number two, I'm barely touching my skin. Keep it that way and you will get soft application. I think lid is where you tend to want to pack it on a little bit more. You may want a little bit more of a standout application. For these transition type colors, here's where you want to keep it soft, keep a light hand. And then I'm going to wipe off that brush and I'm going to do my highlight with this kind of buttery shade right here. Take that up right under the brow. I haven't left myself a lot of space for this, but that's okay. It's a little bit more dramatic look. And I know I've said this before, but just a little reminder, it's okay to go back to other steps of your look. As you see people do tutorials, myself included, I'm sure we're all kind of thinking like we want to make it as step by step as possible and make it clear cut and very easy to follow. But like, for example, here, I'm looking at what I've done because I've got a lot of darkness kind of blended up in here. I do want to go back to this light shade now and kind of reinforce that, almost pull it up a little bit more onto my lid for a little more contrast there. So take a look at the eyeshadow look and think about, how do I like how it's coming along? What would I change about it? And go for it. I do want to show you how to pull everything together on the lower lash line here. So I'm going to pull in a smudge brush. I think earlier in the week I had shown, let's see, some lower lash line happening with a pencil brush. So I think it's nice to have two different brushes to use in this area. One's going to give you a more softened, diffused look. One's going to really place the shadow exactly where you want it. So first off, that is what I want with this darkened shade. I want it to really kind of connect back to what's happening here with this outer V. So I'm going to put it right on the outer corner. And then for a little softness, I'm going to use this more medium shade. You could use, I guess, the red or this lightish brown for this type of a step. And just take that under the rest of the lower lash line. And then I will choose to go bright on my inner rim here. So I'm using my Milani Shadow Eyes in Almond Cream, which I think we pulled in earlier in the week. And just kind of widen out the whites of my eye here. This would also be really pretty if you went dark in the inner rim and really smudged it below the eye for a very dramatic look. And for me, the finishing touches of this look, I'm going to use my Physicians Formula Eye Booster Liquid Liner Pen, which I would totally recommend if you are new to liquid liner, because it's actually a brush tip, not a felt tip. So I think it has even more flexibility, and I think that's ideal when you're trying to get used to going across your lash line and get really close to the lashes. This definitely allows you to do that. And a lot of times when I've got my shadow shaped in this manner, I do like to do a bit of a winged liner because it really follows the shape and it just, I don't know, it creates a nice harmonious look here with the outer part of the eye. So for that, I think about, you know, this last quarter of my eye, if we were dividing it up into fourths, this last part of it, I start to kind of take off in an upward direction, pointing to the outer part of my eyebrow or the outer part of where my shadow's shaped to. And then I go to the absolute outer corner of my eye and I connect up to that. And so I've got a small triangle there that it's just a matter of filling in. And then if you feel like it, you can take a little bit more of your darkest shadow and smudge it down just below the wing. That's a trick I often use just to make everything look a little more seamless on the outer part of the eye. Next, I'm just curling my lashes, going to apply some mascara. This is Tarte Lights Camera Lashes, but use whatever you prefer. And a bit of lower lash mascara as well with my CoverGirl Clump Crusher Water Resistant. And not that you'd have to, but I am just itching to pop on a pair of false lashes with this look. These are the Red Cherry number 43s. So without, you know, the look still has plenty of definition, plenty of lift, but I just think this adds kind of that fun, flirty, absolutely wide open pop to the eye. So the finished look, I am so happy with it. I really love the way this quad comes together with this kind of grouping of shades. I think they work really nicely. You might look at a quad and say, I just want to use half of that. I just want to use the sandwich method with those two colors, and that's totally doable as well. The overall takeaway on this, I think, is that quads can be a little more clear-cut and easy to use on the eyes than you might think, because I do feel like each shade is more likely to have a purpose, whereas more multitasking tends to be necessary if you were to just use a single or a duo. I think there's just a little more strategy involved with those. And here it's like, okay, there's my outer corner, there's my lid, there's my highlight, there's my transition. And it can just sometimes at a glance be a little bit more easily identifiable. And so if you're looking for a good quad that's going to be well-rounded for you, first off, you yourself know whether you prefer more matte or more shimmer. As far as this quad goes, like this lightest shade was totally matte. The others have like a hint of shimmer, but they come off kind of matte on the eyes. But in terms of color scheme, I think a nicely balanced quad that can give you this kind of look will have one dark shade, a couple of medium shades, and a light color that's light enough to work as a highlight. Keep your eye out for that kind of a pattern in a quad, and it can totally be plugged into this eyeshadow look. As far as the rest of my face, just a couple of things that I wanted to mention. I used my Benefit Dallas blush, which is kind of a dusty, neutral, soft, plummy blush. I always like fall in love with this all over again when I pull it out, because I don't use that often enough. And then for the glow on top of my cheeks, I'm using this Laura Geller Filter Finish Setting Powder in Universal. So it's got all those different colors, and it's really, really brightening. And then for my lips, I was kind of having one of those days where I didn't know when to quit. So I used this ombre lip in Ginger and Nutmeg. I used mostly this lighter side, which is just kind of a nude, and a little bit of the darker on the outer corners, and then I decided I wanted some shine because my lips were looking a little dry, so I put on this butter gloss in creme brulee over the top. So thank you guys so much for taking time out of your days to watch this series. I will see you in the 5th video. Bye!